What's going on, everybody? Last week I asked you the question of share some incidents where a card got away. Now, however you interpreted that is going to be different. But, it could have been a card that you have and you sold, you didn't buy that you wish you had, maybe you traded it away. And as the stories were pouring in this week and I'm reading through them, it was painful to hear some of these situations. But I know that, with every series of bad beats, times we didn't buy the card or traded the card away or sold it too soon, there were some good ones as well. More on that in a bit. But that's what we're going to do this week. We're going to go through your stories of the times cards got away. And, there are a lot of a lot of ones that you're going to hear here that you're going to really feel the pain of the person who's sharing the story as I'm reading through their story and their comment that they left. But this first one is just brutal. Go ahead and listen to what happened here.
The one that got away, kind of. I had a beautiful 55 tops Koufax that I found in a box I purchased at a yard sale in the late 80s. The closest thing I had to a safe at the time was under the floorboard in my bedroom. So there it was, sorted, when I enlisted in the military and left home. While I was deployed, my folks sold the home and had no idea about my secret cache of cards under the floor, including my Jackie Robinson, Ryan rookie, Rose rookie, and a couple of Mantles and Mays, and several other great cards. Guessing they are still right there where I left them, with some other contraband from my adolescence.
Oh my gosh. First of all, I've got to say, thank you for your service to our country. And the fact that you enlisted and went away ended up costing you this collection is absolutely brutal. I mean, I literally envision this situation and I'm like, what would I do when I got back? When I got home, I feel like I would go to the house and say, hey, when my parents were moving the stuff out, they left a couple of things. Is it okay if I come inside and get them? I mean, when we're talking about a Jackie Robinson card, we're talking about, the Koufax rookie, the Rose rookie, the Nolan Ryan rookie, the Mantles, the Mazes. I think I would probably go knock on the door. That's an absolutely brutal situation. I have some friends, and when they moved out, like 6 months after they moved out, it's Christmas. And they're like, oh, let's get out the Christmas decorations. And they were like, when we sold the house, we didn't clear out the attic. All of our stuff that was in the attic is still in the attic in the old house. And this is along those lines, but it was your secret stash. And the other contraband that was in there, I think we can all kind of imagine what those things might be. So this is a brutal one, without a doubt. Now, this next one is going to be a series of 3 similar type stories. And so I'm going to share all 3 of them back to back to back. And then we'll go ahead and we'll kind of debrief and lick our wounds together after we hear all 3.
The card I missed out on was when I was at a small local card show about 5 years ago. One of the first tables I looked at had a pretty well-centered, sharp-edged, very nice eye appeal Bob Gibson rookie card with a PSA 5 grade. My all-time favorite pitcher, for what I can remember, was for about $150. Being that it was a small show with a small crowd, I figured I would make a go around the rest of the show and then buy the card on my way out. Well, I didn't really find anything else that interested me, and so I made my way back to the dealer to claim the Gibson card. As I walked up to the table, my heart was broken. Walking away was a gentleman who was talking about this beautiful Gibson rookie card he had just purchased, admiring it as he slowly walked away. Ouch. It's a hard card to find, as I'm sure you know, and I haven't found one since in that undergraded, in my opinion, PSA 5 grade. Now, prices have increased to where it is out of my budget range. I guess you can't win them all. The second one is, my card that got away was a 1957 Roberto Clemente. I was at a card show, and the first table I stopped at had the 57 Clemente raw and priced to move. Because it was the first table I stopped at, I left the card with the plan to make my way back around the room and pick it up. Well, as you can figure out, when I got back to the table, the card was gone. I haven't found another one in my price range since. I keep looking, though. I have many stories of regrets, but my biggest was not buying the T206 green Ty Cobb at the Cleveland National in 2017. On the first day, I found a very nice PSA 2, rounded corners, nice registration and centering, for $1,200, and decided to look further, as this was the first day of 4 days, and I had just started my national adventure. Another showed up a day later in a good SGC holder. This was actually a better colored and shaped card, nice corners, well centered, with one major flaw, slight paper loss on Cobb's cheek, which I decided I could not live with. It was priced at $1,150. I decided to look for that other dealer, but had not marked down his booth and could never find it again, as Cleveland was a massive show. Found a dealer selling a used bat, which sidetracked my plans, so instead of buying a Cobb, I bought a Nellie Fox game-used bat and a signed game-used Ivan Rodriguez bat. By the next year, the green Cobb had tripled in price, if not more, and I basically missed my chance of obtaining one. Other regrets: did not buy a Ruth 1933 Red Gouty, non-graded, for $600 in 1996, and selling my Leaf Jackie Robinson rookie in an SGC 5 in 2020. Those stories for another day.
Man, these three are tough ones. Because, we've all had this situation. We get to a show, we see something that we like, we're like, man, I don't want to spend my whole budget right now, because then I'm done buying. And what if there's something else that I really want, and I've used all my money on this? What do I do? Right? We've all been there, and I'm curious on what everybody else's strategy is. Now, for me, my personal strategy is, it kind of depends on how rare the card is. If it's a 1962 Roberto Clemente card, and you're at the National, there are going to be lots and lots and lots of nice copies at all grades of that card, right? But if you're talking about, like, the T206 green portrait Cobb, and you're looking at, kind of a 2 price range, there's probably not going to be many of those in the room, even at the National. Now, there might be some more in the room, but they might be really overpriced, or they might be in the grade that you like, but not the condition or the eye appeal that you need. So that would be a much, much tougher situation. So I think the advice that I would give somebody, and the advice I think I tend to follow, is, if it's a card, it's like a pre-war card, or a severely underpriced card, or a ultra rare card that's hard to find centered, and this is a centered one, whatever you define rare as. But if it's something rare, right, that there's a chance there might be another one in the room, but it's not necessarily likely, then I think that even if it's early on the first day of the National, you got to buy it. Like when you see it, you got to buy it because it might not be there when you come back, if you can even find where it is that you went. Now, the situation with the Bob Gibson, right? The Bob Gibson rookie card at the small local show. Now that's a tough one because then you're like, there probably aren't a lot of people who go to the small local show that are willing to or interested in buying, a 1959 Bob Gibson rookie card. But if it's like a well-centered one and it's an undergraded one like this one is, and you're planning on buying it, I think you probably got to just do it up front, right? So, I mean, that's a more common card, but that is a card that is very difficult to find centered. So you find a centered one that's undergraded and it's a fair, good price, I think you got to go for it. Now, in none of these three situations do I blame the person. I wouldn't say, oh, this is all your fault. I mean, the whole thing, everything is a learning experience. This is an opportunity to go, okay, well, in the future, I now know I got to do this. But generically speaking, people have kind of asked me my philosophy on this before. And I think my opinion really goes down to, it depends on how rare it is. If it's something that's very rare or, unlikely to find, and again, that might be unlikely to find one this well centered in this grade. It might be unlikely to find it because there's only 5 that exist, unlikely to, because of whatever reason. I think if it's rare, even if it's early, you got to do it. But if it's common, if it's a 1965 Topps Mickey Mantle in a 4, there are going to be other opportunities to get that card. But there might not be other opportunities to get that, T206 green background portrait Ty Cobb card.
So I traded away 2 cards in the same trade that I would kill to have back now. This trade happened in the early 90s. The 2 cards were a Walter Payton rookie in very, very good condition and a Michael Jordan 1984 star rookie. After owning the Michael Jordan card for a while, I want to say a few years, I discovered it had been trimmed. As you might imagine, this disturbed me greatly. I really didn't want a trimmed card, so I went to my local card shop to try and trade the Michael Jordan card. I ended up adding in a lot of other things to sweeten the deal. Unfortunately, the Walter Payton got included in that trade. This is one of those things that if I had a time machine, I would go back and tell myself to keep those cards. Don't ever get rid of those 2 cards. Worst trade of my life.
So, yeah, I mean, the Jordan Star Rookie card, we now know has become a pretty big card. It has gained steam over the years, and then when PSA finally agreed to start grading star cards not all that long ago, that really catapulted the prices upwards. And so, it would be hard to go back in time and know that card was going to grow in, popularity and in value. And it would also be hard to know that it would start being graded by PSA, which would change the trajectory of the card. But this brings up a whole nother point about, a trimmed card. Like, some people don't want to have cards that are altered. They seem, it's kind of like the scarlet letter on a card. It's like it gives them a stomachache to have cards that were altered. Other people, it doesn't bother them at all. Like they're totally happy to, own cards that have been altered or cards that have been trimmed or cards that, something has been done to it. And it might have to do with that person's, what bothers them, what doesn't. It might have to do with what the card is. I mean, if it's a severely rare card, then it would be very difficult to find another copy of it. Even an altered copy is a great copy. So I kind of understand why you'd want to move that card, finding out later that it was trimmed. So I get that, and you didn't know that was going to happen with this Jordan card. It was going to, a lot of people are like, well, that's his true rookie card. That wasn't really a common belief not all that long ago. I mean, there were people saying it, but not a ton of people. More people are saying it now than they were probably at the time. And the Walter Payton, you don't know what it would have graded, right? And it's a good card, but it's not a card that you couldn't replace. You can find another one of those cards. But the other part of this is we don't know what you got. You traded away as a sweetener to the deal the Walter Payton rookie card, and you traded away the Jordan Star. So I mean, what'd you get? Maybe it wasn't, maybe it wasn't a bad deal. So I think there might be more to this one, but the trimmed cards, altered cards thing, the change, and I guess that's another thing that we can learn from this, right? If not all cards are going to continue on the same trajectory, things can change. And one of the things that changed was a lot of people's opinion of the Jordan Star card and PSA's opinion of the Jordan Star card. And so things can happen. And when those things happen, it certainly can change the value and the future value of what it is that you're trading away.
Here's my story of the one that got away. I saw a raw 1956 Jackie Robinson. I wanted it. The problem was it cost 2 months' wages. My college-age son reminds me about it every time we hear about Jackie. But I tell him that I was saving money for college, and if I didn't go to college, I wouldn't have met his mom. Of course, he says, but Dad, it was only $20. Well, son, that was true. I took home $138.15, 20 hours, twice a month. Every 2 weeks, I put $133.15 in the bank and kept $5 for fun. Movies were $1.50 to $2, and baseball cards. That's 2 months of fun. No 15-year-old boy can say no to fun with your friends in 1980. Oh, the days of our youth. That is the story of the card that got away from me. Another one says, I had the opportunity to buy a Wayne Gretzky rookie around 2007 for $200 from the card shop I used to go to a lot in Colorado Springs. It was ungraded and had a wrinkle at the top right corner of the card. At the time, you could buy a really nice one for about $600 ungraded, which I never did. I told the owner of the card shop when he called that I would pass and wanted to hold out for a nicer one. That would have been some of the best $200 I had ever spent. And the third one, here's a story about the one I passed on. In the early 80s, I was collecting vintage cards, including the T206 cards. A prominent dealer in the area, Chicago, occasionally invited me over to his place when he had cards that he thought I might be interested in. One day I was there, and he showed me a card and asked if I was interested in purchasing it. He said that he had just obtained it for $7,500 and would sell it for $10,000. It was the Honus Wagner T206. While professional grading didn't exist back then, it had no creases, decent centering, and slightly rounded corners. My guess is it would receive a grade of about 4. I told him that I couldn't imagine paying that much for a piece of cardboard. It is probably a $4 million or more card today. In reality, if I had purchased the card, I am sure I would have sold it when it reached $100,000.
Oh, the Honus Wagner one, that's rough. That's really rough. A card that was worth $10,000 there, or you could have acquired for 10,000, and now is worth multiple millions, is certainly certainly going to be the most painful of these. Now, we have to put things in perspective a little bit. We have to keep in mind that at that time, $10,000 then is not like $10,000 now, right? There are houses that were selling, 30 years ago for $80,000 that are selling for, $500,000 or $600,000 now. So it's if we're using today's dollars, it would be a lot more than $10,000 that you would have paid for it. Now, not 4 million, but and in all these cases, this is the category I think we all fall into. We all fall into the card we didn't buy that we wish we had bought for whatever reason. Well, the reason probably being that now we know how much it would be worth, and it would be way more than what we would have paid. I think we all have several experiences that we didn't buy something. If we knew then what we know now, right? We would have gone out and cleared out our bank accounts, and we would have bought everything in the room. We all have had those experiences. Anybody who is collecting cards in the mid 80s would say that they really, really wish they could have gone back and bought cases of 86 Fleer basketball and just left them unopened in a vault somewhere, because they would have done really, really well. I mean, the cost of a box of that stuff is insane. So, yes, a lot of us would fall into this category of not buying something that we wish we had bought. But that Wagner, man, that's a tough one. I'm sorry, my friend. I'm sorry.
The two that got away. Being from Cleveland, no collection was complete without a few LeBron James cards. I saved up over several summers and bought 2 LeBron James exquisite patch autos from the 2005-2006 set. Fast forward several years to when I was a broke college kid. That's when I made the wise decision to sell those LeBron James cards for $400 each to cover really important expenses like Natty Light and maybe a textbook or two. Today, those cards are comping around $6,500 to $8,000, and I can only dream of the vintage baseball cards I could get with that money, like a 33 Gaudy Babe Ruth.
Yeah, I mean, LeBron's have, from, early on to now have certainly gone up a lot. Brady rookies have gone up a lot. LeBron rookies have gone up. Steph Curry rookies have gone up a lot. Kobe cards have gone up a lot. There are a lot of cards, even modern cards, that have really gone up a lot. And that's not even talking about a lot of the vintage stuff, And I think that the second most common kind of category that we all fall into is that we sold something too early, right? Oh, if I had only hung on to that card a little longer, it would now be worth this. I sold it for $500 and now it's worth $5,000. Like, that's tough. And we've all probably done it. But we do also have to consider, what did we do with the money from the card that we sold? Now, if you sold that card for $500 and then you went out and you bought some other card for $500 that has gone up, then, it's just kind of trading one thing for another. But you go into detail about the college textbook and the Natty Light, right? The cheap beer. If you don't know what Natty Light is, Natural Light is like the cheapest cheap beer that, high school and college kids would drink, because it was like cheap, and it was beer. And so yeah, yeah, certainly tough. But we all have these stories, and hey, that's why this is interesting. It's interesting to hear this. And I was kind of going back and forth about a few different ideas, and I was talking to my buddy Mookie Chilson, and I said, Mookie, what would be a good question? What's a good question for the midlife community this coming week? And this is a week ago. And he says, I'm always interested in the one that got away. Tell me about the one that got away. So that's where this question came from this past week. And again, little painful. But we're going to switch gears completely. This week, we're going to go to the opposite end of the spectrum. All right? Here's what we're going to do. For this week, and I am pumped to hear these stories. I want to hear the best deal. What's the best deal you ever made? The best deal of your card collecting career. Now, I'm going to share one of mine, just to kind of get the juices flowing a little bit. So, I've said for a long time that with cards, knowledge is power, right? The more you know, when you walk into the card show, if you know the most of anybody in the card show, you have a lot of opportunities to make some really good purchases because you know the most in the room, right? And so I had a situation with my dad. It was a random weekend. There was a card show at a hotel in Concord, California, which at the time was about 35 minutes away from us. So my dad and I drove to the show, and this was in 1989. And what had just come out were the 1989 Upper Deck cards. I mean, they had just come out. Like, the first time I ever saw them was at this card show. And remember, this is well before the internet. This is well before you had to hear about stuff to know about stuff. There wasn't, Twitter or Instagram to be sharing information on a wide platform quickly. So we go to this show and we see all these Upper Deck cards, and they're beautiful. And at the show, there is a dealer, and in his case, he's asking like $50 or $60 for a Dale Murphy card. And I'm like, what's the deal? Why is this Dale Murphy card going for more than some of these other, primo rookie cards? Like the Gary Sheffield rookie card was a big one, even right off the bat. And he goes, well, it's an error card. It's a reverse negative. And I'm like, whoa, okay. And Dale Murphy is like, he's like a really good player in the 80s, and this is a reverse negative. This is an error card. And this is when error cards were like the thing, right? And I'm like, wow, that's cool. So we now know this. So we go home that night, and I'm talking to my dad about it, and I'm like, man, where could we maybe find one of these 89 Upper Decks? Because, like, nobody knows about this yet. Like, these cards just came out. Like, I don't even know how this dealer found out about them, but he knows about them. There hasn't been a Beckett that's been released yet with any prices for 89 Upper Decks, so nobody knows what anything is worth because we all went by the Beckett, right? And so we said, there's this one card shop that always has binders and binders of everything. The new stuff to the old stuff. It's just like binder after binder after binder. Like, he was taking like complete sets for years and years and years and breaking them up. And he always had stuff. So I go, let's go check out this card shop. Card shop was called the West Coast Cards in Concord, California. So the next day we get in the car, we drive down to Concord, California, and I say, hey, do you have any 89 Upper Deck cards? And he says, yeah, here's the binder. And so we're flipping through the binder, and boom, I see the Dale Murphy. And it's the reverse negative. And I said, how much is the Dale Murphy card? And he goes, 25 cents. And I said, okay. So I pull it out, and I set it on the counter. And I buy the Dale Murphy card for 25 cents. Now, in the town one over, there was a card shop in Fairfield, California called Batter Up Sports Cards. And they were a great group of guys. And we used to go in there all the time. Like once a week, we'd go in and hang out and look at their stuff and talk cards and stuff. And so they got to know us a little bit. And so I asked to sell my Dale Murphy reverse negative on consignment with them. And they were like, you know, this is after the Beckett had come out and the card had blown up, and this is like one of the chase cards from the set. So I put it up for sale for consignment, and this is 1989, so I'm 10 years old, and put it up for consignment for $100, and it sold. Now in 1989, $100 is a fortune. And I'm just rich on my $100. And if I remember correctly, they didn't end up charging me the commission because I'm a 10-year-old kid. I think they gave me the whole $100. So I had $100 off of that quarter investment turned into $100. So do the math on how that deal worked out. So that's mine. I look forward to hearing yours on the best deal that you've ever had in your sports card collecting.